All right, now we are back with yet another tier list video. Okay, so far in 2024, there have been 18 title fights, and in this video, I am going to rank the performance of every champion in those title fights. So I'm not going to be ranking the contender just from the champion side of things, okay? Some of the criteria I'm going to be using is how well did they do in the fight? Obviously, did they win it? Did they lose it? Did they get a finish? Did they get finished? Did they dominate? Was it a competitive fight? All of these things. Was there any controversy? Also, who did you defend against is going to be a big one and actually a determining factor for some of these title performances, whether or not they get ranked higher or lower. Okay, now if you have any tier list video ideas, please let me know down in the comments below. I am working on a much longer one as we speak, but I would still love to, do any requests. Either way, let's get to it. The first title performance that is going into D tier, the first champion performance that's going into D tier, which was actually the first title fight of 2024, is going to be Raquel Pennington for her performance against Mayra Bueno Silva. I will put Raquel Pennington in D tier every chance I get. Any tier list that I do that she is a part of, she will be ranked either here or lower, okay? I don't even think I need to justify that. She's horrible, and so was Mayra Bueno Silva in this fight, okay? They both closed their eyes constantly while throwing strikes. Neither of them really did a whole lot of damage. There was no successful grappling, really a bunch of cage wrestling and stuff like that. So, I mean, while she might have came out the victor, this was a vacant title, of course. She still gets put in D tier, okay? Moving on to the next champion's performance to go into that D tier spot. This one hurt me a little bit, okay? Alexander Volkanovski. So, I love Alexander Volkanovski. But when you get flatline KO'd the way that you did in the second round against Ilia Topuria, I have to put you in D tier, at least if we're grading your performance. Now, I know there's going to be some people that point out, well, he did quite well in the first round against Ilia Topuria, and that's kind of true, he did, right? But in hindsight, okay, I'm thinking that it's a bit of a theme in Ilia Topuria fights where not that he's letting you win the first round or that he's taking it off entirely, because he still was able to land good shots on Alexander Volkanovski in the way of leg kicks and right hands and things like that in that first round. But I think that he really does kind of he's a bit of a slow starter where he's downloading data and then he's really going to start putting things together as the fight goes on. Ilia Topuria is the kind of guy that knows, like, I need to crack you clean once, basically, and I'm not going to put myself in harm's way getting to that shot. So I'm going to let you do your thing, and I'm just going to figure out my range, figure out all my shit, and then once it's time for me to go, I'm going to go. And when he does, he usually knocks you out, okay? So I'm not going to shit on Volk for losing to Ilia Topuria, especially not after this past Saturday, but in terms of a championship performance, I mean, wasn't all that great, was it? Moving on to the next champion to go into the D tier is going to be Leon Edwards for his performance against Bilal Muhammad. This was an easy one, okay? This is easily a D-level performance. And I've seen some people, and by some people, I mean Leon Edwards' brother, come out and make some excuses on behalf of Leon Edwards in the form of, well, the time that he had to fight was what did it. Fuck all that shit, okay? Listen, I was sympathetic to not just the fighters, but also the fans in the UK for having to stay up till 5 o'clock in the morning for this event, or even later than that, maybe. You, Leon Edwards, as a champion, okay, who doesn't fight all that often, should have adjusted your schedule. It's part of being an athlete, dude. There are fighters that fight all over the world, okay, that have to come from all over the world to America, and they've got to get on American time, and we don't see it affect them in the way that you were affected, allegedly, okay? You did very little in this fight. Even when you had a good position, when you had his back, you did very little. Up until the last, 30 seconds, when you split that ginormous nose in the middle of Bilal Muhammad's face. I don't even know if I want to call it a nose. It's like the size of a fucking Monster Energy can, okay? You split that thing wide open, which showed me that had you maybe fought with a little bit more urgency, you could have done some damage, okay? And it frustrates me to not see that until the last 30 seconds of the fight. So you deserve to be in D tier, okay? Moving on to the next D tier performance from a champion. And you know what, everybody? Round of applause to Raquel Pennington for getting put in D tier twice. I told you any chance I get, I'm a thrower in here. This one's even more justified since she lost, okay? And again, I want to point out the closing of the eyes, both her and Juliana Pena. This is not the fucking blind division. This is not the Special Olympics, lady. Keep them open, okay? Your coaches should be smacking you upside the head every time you do that, but they're not, clearly. Also, we had a guy in Matt Hamill have one of his senses taken from him, okay? Or, I mean, maybe he was born like that. I don't fucking know, but it doesn't matter. The point is, do you think Matt Hamill would be like, yeah, just make it so I can't see too? No. Matt Hamill knows what it's like to be short a sense. And Raquel Pennington, you are not. Yet, if you watched your fights, you would think, I don't know, you had Tourette's or something. Who knows, dude? Either way, moving on to the next champion to go into that D tier spot. It's going to be Alexa Grasso, okay? Now, this was not the worst performance, but she did lose her title, obviously. The reason why I'm grading her so harshly here is because whatever you think of the second fight, whoever you think won, she fought much better in that fight. The first fight, she fought much better in that fight as well. We saw essentially none of the things that gave her success in those first two fights in this third fight against Valentina Shevchenko. Alexa Grasso's takedown defense seemed to be just trying to get a submission once you got taken down. Like, the first order takedown defense wasn't really there, and it was kind of frustrating because on the feet was where Alexa Grasso had the best chance. She dropped Valentina, I think, at least once in the second fight, and we saw none of that. Her hands were almost non-existent. Now, I understand she was concerned for the takedown, right? But it's not even like she was it's not even like her striking was suffering due to her takedown defense. She wasn't in much of a different stance. She wasn't having her hands ultra low so she could dig for underhooks, which maybe caused her to not throw as many punches. There was no takedown defense, so I don't understand it. You know, I applaud her for going for submissions, trying to end the fight and things like that, but at a certain point you need to make the adjustment and stop doing that when you realize, or once you realize, it's not working, okay? Either way, let us get to the C tier category now. The first champion, or former champion, to go into C tier is going to be Sean Strickland. All right, now, maybe some of you think he should be ranked lower, considering he did lose his belt to Dricus du Plessis. This is the performance that I'm grading, of course. But even though Sean Strickland has been annoying me the last year or so, right? He's gotten ultra whiny and entitled, and now all of a sudden, a guy who was like a free speech warrior is complaining about racism in South Africa. Okay, shut up, dude, right? Just shut up. Either way, I'm consistent with my beliefs, and I still, to this day, believe that Sean Strickland beat Dricus du Plessis, okay? So, I'm not going to put him in D tier. This was a very close and competitive fight against a guy that it's aged pretty well, that you went to a split decision with, right? Dricus du Plessis has essentially been able to destroy everybody else they've put in his path, except for Sean Strickland. Also, there were adjustments, or not even adjustments, there were things that Sean Strickland could have continued to do from the first and second round into the third, fourth, that would have won him the fight that he stopped doing. Now, I understand it was partially due to Dricus du Plessis' adjustments that he made, but you know, you get away from the right hand, you get away from the teep kicks, and what's crazy to me is that this isn't the first time Sean Strickland has lost a decision in this way, right? Jared Cannonier comes to mind immediately. You know that optics are an issue. You know you need to land bigger shots than just the jab. You know that these judges are not judging defense, right? Yet your bigger weapons, your more impactful weapons, you get away from and then complain that you lose. And again, while I think you won, there were things you could have easily done a little bit more to secure that victory. So that's why it's in C tier. Either way, moving on to the next champion to go into that C tier category, and that is going to be Zhang Weili for her performance against, who was it? Yan Xiaonan, my bad. Now, at least on the scorecards, this was a pretty one-sided affair, of course, right? Yan Xiaonan, I think, won 49-46, which is good. But she, after like the first couple rounds, there was nothing overly impressive. She almost got her out of there in the first. Okay, what I want to point out, though, is that leading up to this fight, I think a lot of people thought that Yan Xiaonan was like some legitimate knockout threat that Zhang Weili had to mind her P's and Q's and all the rest of it, and it could be dangerous for her, okay? This is, in my opinion, attributable directly to the UFC's marketing team and their ability to put together a good highlight package, okay? Because Yan Xiaonan, and honestly, I fell victim to this a little bit myself. Yan Xiaonan is not a knockout threat, okay? She was 2-2 in her last 4 fights before she fought Weili. It had been a year since she had fought, and that was against Jessica Andrade, which was, by the way, her only fucking knockout in the UFC at all, okay? Also, in those 2 losses, she got TKO'd by Carla Esparza, which it makes what Zhang Weili did a little lessened, in my opinion, especially considering you went and dominated Carla Esparza. How were you not able to completely destroy a girl that Carla Esparza, who, with all due respect, sucks, okay? How could you not go out there and destroy her when you did what you did to Carla Esparza? And I understand that MMA math doesn't necessarily work in that way, but it's just, in hindsight, I don't think the best performance. Also, dude, we only see Zhang Weili about once a fucking year. If you're taking that much time in between fights, I need you to look fantastic, okay, when you come back. Either way, moving on to the next champion to get put into that C-tier category. That's going to be Alexandre Pantoja for his performance against Steve Erceg. Now, this one to me it's a little similar to me putting Sean Strickland in C-tier, but reversed, okay? I thought Pantoja lost. I thought Steve Erceg got the job done. I think that you can argue 49-46 in favor of Steve Erceg, more so than you could argue a Alexandre Pantoja victory, okay? That being said, some of the rounds were pretty damn close. Pantoja realized, I'm getting tuned up on the feet a bit. I need to do something else, mix in the grappling and the control time and all the rest of it, which I understand that people who understand the scoring criteria know that that doesn't fucking matter or shouldn't matter, right? But when you have a close round, it can be the deciding factor. Also, when you have judges that have the IQ of the temperature I set my fucking air conditioner to, who don't understand the scoring criteria because they got their jobs through nepotism or whatever, by any other means other than they know the sport. You know, Pantoja doing that, you could argue, is a high fight IQ move, okay? So, while I think he lost, he officially defended his title, and I'm not going to put him lower than I put Sean Strickland when he officially won his fight, you know? Either way, moving on to the next champion to get put into C tier, and that's going to be Sean O'Malley. First performance against Merab. Dwalish Wheelie. Having issues putting Sean O'Malley in C tier and getting him proportionate to the other men, okay? And women, whatever. Now, this performance wasn't great, and you could make a good argument for D tier. The reason I didn't put it in D tier is there's a few things, okay? First of all, it was a close fight, despite what you want to say. I scored at 48-47 live in favor of Merab. I score at 48-47 for Merab today, okay? 3 rounds to 2, not a blowout, not a domination, despite what Merab fans like to say, okay? And the only person doing real damage or causing impact throughout the course of the fight, and not in the sense of draining a gas tank or something, was Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley almost had Merab to the point where he could finish him in round 5, which, kind of like Leon Edwards, was really frustrating to me. You could have been doing that the whole fight. Your way to win this fight was to crack him coming in. You knew you were going to get taken down, or you knew he was going to shoot takedowns, and rather than try to counter when he was entering, you tried to defend the takedowns, which is it was just odd to me because you knew that would happen. I thought that he was going to be looking for counters when Merab's coming in rather than defending the takedowns and then doing work on the feet, you know? And I feel like that moment in round 5 showed us that had he maybe done a little bit more and been a little less hesitant to throw, he could have actually had a lot more success than he did, you know? So that's why I put it in C tier. It was a close fight, and also, this is something to keep in mind. When we look at all the other people Merab has beaten and the way in which he has beaten them, Sean O'Malley did pretty well. If you look at the way he beat Petr Yan, if you look at the way he beat, Aldo, if you look at the way he beat Marlon Moraes, these guys, Sean O'Malley didn't do all that bad, okay? Either way, moving on to the first champion to get put into B tier. That's going to also be Sean O'Malley, okay? For his performance against Marlon Chito Vera. Now, if you're a fan of striking, you might want to put this one higher, and I totally get that. The only problem is I did say at the beginning, I'm going to factor in who it was you defended your title against. And Chito Vera should never have been in a title fight. I understand the story and all that bullshit, but Chito Vera is a heavy bag that can move around a little bit. So, and it's a theme in his fights too. We've seen him get pieced up by Rob Font throughout the majority of that fight and then be able to land a big shot to steal the round. We've seen him lose rounds to Frankie Edgar and have to pull through in the third round and get that KO with the front kick. We've seen him lose rounds to Dominic Cruz or be losing rounds to Dominic Cruz and then crack him to steal the round as well. Chito Vera, this is a theme. And, it almost happened in the 5th round, I guess you could say. But he's a slow starter. His style is perfect for Sean O'Malley. And also his coach is perfect for an opponent for somebody like Sean O'Malley. Because Jason Prillo, for whatever reason, does not speak with urgency in his corner. It drives me up the fucking wall. You've got a dude that's going to lose this fight. You need to be yelling at him. He's a slow starter. How have they not fixed that issue? It's crazy to me. Especially when you're not fighting an old washed up Dominic Cruz or an old washed up Frankie Edgar or a older and, Rob Font who's taken a ton of damage. Like, you're fighting the champion, a guy who's very good on the feet. You need to do a bit more. So, I don't think that if Sean O'Malley fought any of the other strikers at the top of this division that we would have seen a performance like the one we saw against Marlon Chito Vera. That's why it's only in B tier. Either way, moving on to the next champion to go into that B tier spot. This one's going to be Islam Makhachev for his performance against Dustin Poirier. So I understand that Dustin Poirier maybe didn't deserve the title shot here, which I guess is the same argument I just used for Sean O'Malley. Then one might point out that Islam Makhachev had a much tougher fight against Dustin Poirier, and that's true, but I don't think that Chito and Dustin are comparable at all. Dustin Poirier has always been well within the top 5 of that division. He's beaten a lot of the guys at the top of that division. Anytime he loses, he's able to bounce back real well against tough competition and get himself right back into the mix. So while I'm not going to sit here and argue that Dustin Poirier was the most deserving title contender, I don't think it matters. He's still a fantastic win for anybody. And the way that it happened, I think, is what's really cool. So Islam Makhachev was a huge favorite. And this is, I think, a testament to how good Dustin Poirier is. He made it a fucking war. And a lot of it took place on the feet, which was cool to see Islam fight a guy with such good boxing like Dustin Poirier, especially because one of Islam's best weapons, his rear leg, was taken from him because Dustin Poirier was also a southpaw. So it was really interesting to see all that. Not to mention, showed us that Islam can fight through adversity, get cut open and all the rest of it, be tired in a fight as well, not just steamroll a guy. And he doesn't fucking coast, which I love, because in that 5th round, he went after it and he found the finish, which was really cool to see. If he had not gotten the finish and maybe coasted in that 5th round and gotten like a 48-47 unanimous decision, I'd probably put it in C tier. But considering he ended up digging deep and getting the finish, that's why he gets to be put in B tier, and I think that it's fair. Either way, let's move on to the next champion. To get put into that B tier slot is gonna be Dricus du Plessis for his performance against Israel Adesanya. Okay. Now, if this was a few years ago, I would probably put this as like an A tier performance. I do think, however, that beating Israel Adesanya has lost some of its prestige or allure or whatever you want to say, because we have now seen a handful of guys beat Israel Adesanya, where a few years ago it would have only been Jan Blachowicz. But we've seen Blachowicz beat him. We've seen Alex Pereira beat him. We've seen Sean Strickland beat him. By the way, all three of these guys beat him on the feet. So it wasn't overly shocking to see Dricus du Plessis have a lot of success on the feet as well. It was fantastic to see Dricus get the finish ultimately as well, especially considering some of those rounds were actually quite competitive. Dricus didn't just like wash Adesanya. They were very close on the feet. Something that was really awesome from Dricus, I think, was big shots would get landed on him, and it didn't fucking matter. He would just land big shots back so that he never let the fight snowball away from him. Also, you could tell that at the beginning of the fight, Israel Adesanya was able to come out there and have like 3 minutes of pressure, let's say. Landing big shots, doing quite well, pushing Dricus back. And then towards the end of that round, Dricus du Plessis would start to push. The time that Israel Adesanya was able to push forward just got less and less, because Dricus du Plessis was like melting him over time. And like I said, getting the finish was fantastic. Now we've only seen 2 people finish Israel Adesanya, so that's good. But I will also point out, like the previous 2, Israel Adesanya was not necessarily the most deserving contender, despite what his fans say. I don't care how long he held the title for. He had lost his title to Alex Pereira. He won it back against Alex Pereira. He lost it back immediately to Sean Strickland. He was 1-2 in his last 3. He had been finished in one of those fights. He was coming off of a loss, and he had just gotten 2 immediate title shots, which was insane to me. Okay, he's like 4-3 in his last 7. We're not talking about the Izzy that had the long title reign. We're talking about a guy that's lost his belt twice in the span of 2 years. So, you know, that's another thing I factored in here. Either way, let us get to the last champion to go into B tier. There might be some people that disagree with this one, but it's going to be Alex Pereira for his performance against Khalil Roundtree Jr. So, I've recently watched this fight back, and it was a very fun fight. And Alex Pereira had a fantastic 3rd and 4th round. But, much like the other 3 in this tier, Khalil Roundtree Jr. was not the most deserving. I understand that in hindsight, people are going to say, yeah, but the fight was so close and all the rest of it, and Alex did have to fight through adversity, and he was sick and on antibiotics and injured and whatever else, right? And those are all things that add to his performance. I will agree with that. But it was, I mean, listen. It's literally just because Khalil is who Khalil is. And while he had some success, he didn't have as much success as I think people think he did. I think it's a bit of recency bias, or was a bit of recency bias at play. If you go back and look at the stats for that fight, Alex Pereira outstruck him all 4 rounds. It's just that Khalil was able to land the more impactful shots. Also, I think that a lot of the reason Khalil was able to land such impactful shots was actually because of Alex Pereira himself, and maybe having a bit of a lack of respect for Khalil, or maybe thinking he could just go out there and steamroll him, or maybe it was all a master plan to get Khalil to gas so he could start to pick it up in the later rounds. Who knows, okay? But he did make some questionable decisions throughout the course of that fight, throwing crazy hard question mark kicks and all the question mark kicks that were missing, right? And all the rest of it. So it was a good performance, and if I was ranking like the best round of 2024, maybe round 4 for Alex Pereira would get put up there. But it's just that it was against who it was against, and his other performances, which we will get to, were much better in my opinion in terms of who he was fighting and also how he did it. So let's get there to A tier, okay? And the first person to go into A tier, I might have just spoiled it, Alex Pereira for his performance specifically against Jamal Hill. This is one of my favorite performances of the year for many reasons, okay? Now, I want to clarify something. I liked Jamal Hill going into this fight. Not that I picked him to win, but I thought he was a cool dude. He was the only fighter to shout out my channel. All of that is gone now. Either way, doesn't matter, okay? We don't bend for anybody. I don't care if a fighter likes my channel. If they do crazy shit, I'm gonna call them out, okay? Done. Now, If you ask Jamal Hill, the only reason Alex Pereira won this fight is because he cheated. Or Herb Dean cheated, or who knows. If you ask me, okay, I think it's because Alex Pereira set a trap that worked perfectly and Jamal Hill fell for it perfectly. It was obviously the jab to the body. Again, if you ask Jamal Hill was in control of this fight the entire time. He was actually landing the more significant strikes. Actually, he makes kind of the Chael Sonnen argument where, well, you know, I won 4 out of the 5 round fights. I tapped. I thought that meant the round's over. Jamal Hill thinks he won 3 minutes out of this fight. It was just that he got knocked out. Okay? And I understand in hindsight, this kind of just comes off like Alex Pereira beat up a, like, mental institution patient that escaped, a schizophrenic of sorts. But you got to go back in time and remember something, okay? A lot of people thought Alex Pereira was going to lose this fight, and I'm not fucking joking or being exaggerating. I'm not exaggerating about that shit, okay? The odds were about a pick'em fight. They were very close to a pick'em fight. Alex Pereira was barely a favorite in this fight. There were a lot of people picking Jamal Hill to get the job done, and you can go back and check if you don't believe me, but that's part of the reason why. So he was fighting a champion that never lost his belt, and he basically had a flawless performance against a guy that a lot of people thought would give him troubles because of the southpaw, because he has hands, because he can knock dudes out, all the rest of it. This is why I think Alex Pereira closed it like a minus 120. Okay, so again, in hindsight, it's like, well, yeah, of course he fucked them up, but at the time, not a lot of people thought that was going to be the case. I did, but either way, dude, let's move on to the next real champion going into the A-tier slot. That's Tommy Aspinall, dude. He is the real heavyweight champion. I don't give a fuck what Jon Jones fans say. He defended his interim title. If this was simply an interim title fight where neither guy was the interim champion and the interim title was up on the line, I would have not included this fight. I would have pretended it didn't exist, because interim titles oftentimes don't mean shit. They're just marketing tools. Not here, though. Tom Aspinall won the interim championship fighting Sergey Pavlovich a while ago. And Sergey Pavlovich was terrifying. Now, that win has looked to have aged not the best, because Volkov went out there and fucked up Sergey Pavlovich, and I would understand if you were to say that, but you got to remember Tom Aspinall also fucked up Alexander Volkov, right? And the only guy that people thought could give Tom Aspinall troubles was Curtis Blades, because Curtis Blades has a style that is actually, you know, dangerous for a lot of guys at heavyweight. We've seen him take down Volkov for 5 rounds and not let him do anything, and Tom Aspinall just ran through him like he was fucking nothing. If this was an undisputed title defense, I would maybe put it in S tier, you know, but it's just, I guess we've seen Curtis Blades get knocked out by Derek Lewis not all that long ago, and whatever else. So, you know, also I thought but listen, dude, Tom Aspinall's just so good. His 1-2 is beautiful. His adjustments that he makes to land the 1-2 if it doesn't work the first time are beautiful. And once he's got you hurt, you're fucking dead. He's got some of the best killer instincts in the UFC, period. And he is the real heavyweight champion who has already defended his title, won the interim title, and defended it before we saw Jon Jones defend a single fucking time, okay? All right, moving on to S tier. We've got 2 performances. I'm sure you've already figured out which ones they are, but we're going to go through them anyways. Alex Pereira for his performance against Yuri Prochazka. This was my favorite performance, period, I think, throughout the course of 2024. And much like the Jamal fight, in hindsight, people might shit on it because it's Yuri and he has no defense and whatever else. Gotta remember, dude. People forget, man. A lot of people picked Yuri Prochazka to win this fight. He was just like Jamal Hill. I think Alex Pereira closed at a minus 130. It was a pick'em fight almost. The reason is because people thought Prochazka got fucked over in the first fight with the early stoppage, and then Prochazka comes back and knocked out Alexander Rakic, which, by the way, makes Ankalaev look fucking ridiculous, okay? But either way, we're not talking about that right now. This performance was beautiful. It was start to finish flawless. Alex Pereira set not 1 but 2 traps. We saw the left hook land at the end of the round, which he set with the body jab as usual, knocked down Yuri Prochazka, Start of the second round, what does he do? He comes out and he switch kicks him in the head and knocks him out. So that was set up due to all the body kicks Alex Pereira was throwing on Yuri Prochazka. So he set 2 traps in the inside of a round and had both of them work 30 seconds, well, a minute away from one another, because of course there's a minute in between rounds. Yuri Prochazka had basically no success here at all. And, you know, once Alex Pereira knocked out Yuri Prochazka 3 times in this fight. He knocked him out at the end of the first round. Yuri had a minute to recover, probably didn't recover fully, which is why the head kick that landed with like the side of the toe was able to put him down the way that it did. He knocked him out with the switch kick I just mentioned, okay? But also, Yuri might have been onto something, dude. Alex Pereira was using black magic, okay? How many times does this guy have to get accused of cheating? It's hilarious, but either way. He knocked him out with just a stare after all that. So, in the course of a single fight, he knocked down Yuri Prochazka 3 times, one of which he didn't even need to touch him to do. And he barely got touched at all. And he finished Yuri way better than he did the first time. So there was no more questions. Even though a lot of people picked Yuri Prochazka to beat Alex Pereira in both of these fights, by the way. Moving on, I just want to say something quickly. I was going to do this video about a week ago, but I thought to myself, I need to wait for Ilia Toporia's performance against Max Holloway, because we could end up having another S-tier worthy performance, and that's exactly what we got from Ilia Topuria, and I am very glad that we waited, especially considering with my fight of the night tier list, we ended up getting one that was very much S-tier worthy with Mektikbek Oralbai and Mateusz Rebecki, okay? So I'm glad I waited. This performance was fantastic from Ilia Topuria, and I know there's going to be people that point out, well, Ilia Topuria was losing, or some shit they'll say. Now, I had it 1-1 going into that third round, but much like we spoke about with the Volkanovski fight, I think Ilia Topuria is the kind of guy where he's not necessarily thinking about winning rounds. He knows he's only got to touch you clean once, and that's even really the case with Max Holloway. When he landed that overhand right, which got Max wobbly in the third round before the finishing shots, that we've never really seen Max Holloway rock like that ever. And that was the first right hand that he put right down the pipe straight. He put a lot of power into that shot, and as soon as it connected on Max's chin, that's what we got. And then he went and he chased him down and knocked him down with the left hook, which is, I mean, it's insane, dude. So I think he's more than willing to not necessarily win rounds. Now, he's going to land in the first and the second. He was landing in the first and the second, and he landed in the first against Volk. That's not what he's looking to do. He's looking to put you away, and he knows he can, and that's exactly what we saw. He was very patient. He has this ability to make very small, detailed adjustments mid-fight that is unlike almost anybody else. It is truly incredible. He never strays from what he's trying to do, even if he is getting touched up, because there were moments that Max cracked him pretty good, right? Ilia overthrew on a left hook in the first round, and Max cracked him with a 1-2 that kind of staggered Ilia. He was getting his knee stomped, right? There was adversity that he went through. He was bloodied, but his technique is just perfect. He has all the right tools, and he knows when to use them, which is another thing we don't typically see. You know, there's a lot of guys who have power like Ilia Topuria. There is. People are going to say that I'm being crazy, that's a shit take, but let me just hear me out for a sec. There are a lot of guys that can hit hard. There are not a lot of guys that can hit hard that can also put it on your chin. You know, or that can also put it on your chin while maintaining being safe, which is something that Ilia Topuria can do. Like I said, he knows he's got to crack you clean once, but he's not gonna. There's a lot of guys with power that are like, I need to just hit you once, so I'm gonna throw fucking 30 shots right now, and if I touch you once, you're done, and I'll eat whatever you throw my way. It's not good for long-term health, and when you get to the highest level, it's not good for your offense either. Your chances of you landing each and every time you climb the rankings get slimmer and slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. And Ilia Topuria is aware of that. So we see him make adjustments. We see him start to extend combinations once they're starting to work. And this is what we get. And It's against guys. I don't want to hear fucking anybody try to downplay this performance in the comments because it's Max Holloway. Okay? Fuck all that shit. Max Holloway just had the... Max Holloway was getting glazed like crazy by a bunch of you. And now you want to flip and say he's old, he's washed up, his chin's gone, all the rest of it? What did he just do at UFC 300? He beat the shit out of Justin Gaethje for 5 rounds, and then he flatlined him in the last second. So I don't want to hear shit about his chin. I don't want to hear shit about him being at 45. That Max Holloway that we saw on Saturday night beats everybody at featherweight except for Volkanovski, Ilia Topuria, and maybe Diego Lopez. That's a maybe, okay? Same with Volk. I don't want to hear that washed up bullshit. I don't want to hear the Volkanovski that stepped into the cage against Ilia Topuria in fucking March or February, sorry, beats every other featherweight in my opinion. And what Ilia Topuria has been able to do in the span of a year, knock out Volkanovski and knock out Max Holloway, is incredible. And I am a massive Alex Pereira fan, okay? I painted my face and put on a fucking native headdress the last time he fought when I streamed. I think I have Ilia Topuria's Fighter of the Year over Alex Pereira simply because of the level of competition and how hard it is to do what he has done at the lower weight class. And his fucking age, bro. The guy's young. We get a lot more time with Ilia Topuria, which as an MMA fan is very exciting, okay? Blaze Fest over. Either way, dude. That's it. That's it for this tier list. Let me know which placements you disagree with. Let me know who you would have put where instead. Keep an eye out for my next long upcoming tier list. The video will probably be an hour and a half to 2 hours long. Either way, dude. Like and subscribe. Notification bell. All the fucking rest of it. I'll see you at the next video. Bye-bye.